is Dimos and I'm a MODX owner, as you can see. Today I wanted to make a really quick video where I'll show you how you can set up seamless switching of sounds within a single performance, and we'll do that using scenes to change the value of the keyboard control parameter right here. Keyboard control is a part parameter with two values, on or off, indicated by the keyboard icon just next to the part's volume slider. When keyboard control is on, the icon lights up green, and when it's off, the icon is grayed out, as you can see for parts 2 to 4. What does this mean practically? Well, when the keyboard control is on for a part, we'll be able to hear that part when we play it. If the keyboard control is off for that part, then we won't be able to hear it while playing. So right now in this performance I have 4 parts. Part 1 is an acoustic piano, part 2 is an electric piano, part 3 is a synth pad, and part 4 is a trumpet sound. When I play the keyboard right now, I'll only be able to hear the piano sound, part 1, because I've set keyboard control to on for that part. Now if I change that and I set keyboard control on for part 2, I'll be able to hear only that part. Same goes for parts 3 and 4. So the cool thing here is that when I turn off keyboard control for a part, let's say I've turned it on for part 3, now I turn it off. The previously played notes of that part still sound, they're not being cut off, so that's why keyboard control switching is a very nice and musical way to switch from one sound to another. So again, let's play. I don't know if that's the best example, I don't know if you were able to hear it, but notes did not cut off from the synth pad to the piano. So, what am I actually doing with scenes here, and how do they come into play? Well, a scene is a snapshot of the current state of a lot of the parameters on the Montage or MODX, and one of these parameters is the status of keyboard control. So we can memorize the current status of keyboard control of each part within a scene. So if keyboard control is on or off for a part. I've set up my performance so that for scene 1, only keyboard 1 has keyboard control set to on and the others to off. And for scene 2, only part 2 has keyboard control on, and same for part 3 and 4. You can also do different combinations. So for example, you can have 2 parts which have keyboard control set to on when I press scene 1, as you see, and then again when I press scene 2, only the second part. Scene 3 has the third part turned on, and if we want, we can have all the parts turned on with scene 4. And now I'll show you how to do this. First of all, you need to select the scene tab and make sure that for each scene which you want to use, keyboard control memory is set to on. If it's set to off, then scenes won't be able to memorize the current status of keyboard control for each part. So if you want to use 4 scenes, for example, you need to make sure that each scene has keyboard control turned to on, keyboard control memory. And then when pressing the tab for each scene, you'll be able to see a brief overview of each scene and what it remembers regarding keyboard control. Then, once you've done that, you return to home. Now we want to set up, let's say, scene 4. And for scene 4, we want to have part 1 and part 4 with keyboard control set to on. You press Shift and then you press 4. Now it says scene stored, so now when you press scene 4 again, you'll have those parts with keyboard control turned to on. Let's say that we want parts 2 and 3 on scene 3, same thing again. So now when we switch from scene 3 to scene 4, we have something like this. Maybe not the best choice of instruments, but I think you get the idea. Now there's an exception to all of this, which you have to be really careful about. When you have parts which have keyboard control turned off, if you select just that part you'll be able to play just that part and nothing else. So these settings won't really matter, and you won't be able to hear these parts although keyboard control is turned on for them. That's because the Montage or MODX thinks that when you select a single part which has keyboard control turned off, you want to play just that part and nothing else. So some people have reported that while setting up this kind of seamless switching with keyboard control, what happens to them is that they turn off keyboard control for a part, and now you see that I've selected this part automatically, and now I can only play that part although the keyboard control is turned off, and this confuses a lot of people. So what you need to do is, after deactivating keyboard control for a part, just deselect this part by tapping on the performance name, and then you'll be able to properly utilize the keyboard control settings which you've set up. Memorizing keyboard control status by scenes can also be very useful for adding in layers with scenes. So for example, I have here two same parts duplicated, just the other one, part 2, is an octave up. So part 1 is like spiccato strings, and then the other part is the same but octave higher. And by selecting scenes 1 and 2, I'm able to choose between just the single octave or having both parts play at the same time, an octave apart. And then on the third part I have strings with a longer attack and a longer release, which add a bit more richness to the sound. So on scene 1 I have just the spiccato strings, and on scene 3 I have parts 1 and 3, and then on scene 4 all 3. I hope that these quick tips were at least a bit useful to you, and that you'll find good ways to use scenes and keyboard control in your MODX and Montage.